Nancy Reagan. One of the two.
Yeah, I feel like what's the true crime lady from the 80s and the 90s that was like a big deal too?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh, it's not Paula Dean. What's her name?
Not Paula Dean. She's
Nancy Grace. That's who I'm thinking of. Nancy Grace. Like reverted back to like college days when I would be like straight up actually hammered in class where we're like reviewing a book that we just read, and like all of a sudden I'm like, no, but dude, we need to analyze her character structure, dude. Like, what's her character arc?
Just kept repeating the same thing about you.
I was drunk. You almost said Annabelle again. I guess I'll drink this.
Cheers. Hello, everyone. And welcome to Drunken Demonic, episode 4. With you, as always, is Peter.
Is this only episode 4?
I think so. Do we count them?
I think those aren't real episodes. Let's count it 4, dude. You're right.
Yeah, it's episode 4.
Man, I lost count. No, I don't think so.
This is a lot.
He put me on a time limit.
I'm sorry. We got a time limit because...
All about the context.
All right. Without further ado... How we doing, buddy?
Dude,
how you been? I haven't seen you in a week or so. What have you been up to?
I feel like it's been about a week.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been more than that since we've done recording, but I think that it's been good. It's getting close to summer here, so that's kind of nice.
Almost summer. It fucking snowed last week.
I have one motorcycle running, which is awesome.
That's good.
Yep.
That's better than me. I only own one motorcycle.
Yeah, but you got yours back way faster than mine.
That's true, dude.
Yeah. Would you pay him more? Actually, you probably paid less.
I'm gonna start off with our official sponsors for tonight. A little tiny bottle of Jameson, because we decided we didn't want to get too drunk like last week, so we just got a little bottle.
I guess we're just doing bottle pulls. Yep. Go for it, dude.
People really, you mean the bars and else? Do you worry about getting sick?
No.
I don't have anything else for it.
I think we just bottle pull, dude.
You want to put it in this cup?
No, we're fine.
You sure?
I think we bottle pull.
Wait, it's the bowl. We put on the plate of the bowl.
I'm not a dog, dude. I only need to drink out of
for me.
I don't need to drink out of a bowl. I think we're good to go.
Cheers. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first unofficial sponsor of the evening, Jameson.
Little tiny bottle of Jameson.
Irish whiskey. I wish there was more Irish whiskey.
Oh, no, I don't feel anyways, dude.
Oh, son of a bitch.
What is called? I don't even notice we added a little flair. We put my little Funkos, all of Stay Funkos that we got together.
Yeah, before we had like kind of our own spaces that we were working out of. Now we're in a communal space with a fledgling business here in Steamboat Springs. So
I'm not sure what happens here. Something like puts pants, but
yep.
It's also they're letting us share that. So thank you so much. All right, next.
That's a shout out. What's our next sponsor, Jamie?
Second unofficial sponsor is a giant thing of Pacifico. Giant, big old 32 ouncer.
It's a lot of beer.
24.
That's a 20. That's a 16, dude.
That's a 20.
That's a 24. Okay, fine. It's not a pounder. It's a 24. All right.
16.
All right. We've also got Mountain Tap going here. Love that. New Belgium. It's not as good as Fruit Smash, but it's better than the one Fruit Smash.
You know what I noticed last time? You can't not like you're such a positive person, but the only thing I heard you only talk negative about are the drinks that we have.
Yeah, man.
Every time you're like, this is not good. Like, try this Topo Chico. I fucking hate it.
It's just like, no.
I hate this.
I do need to clarify that I said that I liked the Topo Chico margarita. Definitely actually like those. The seltzers I didn't like as much as the Topo Chico margaritas, but I did like them more than just the Topo Chico soda. Like
the Topo Chico in line?
Yeah, just the regular Topo Chico with no booze in it. I like way less than all the other Topo Chicos.
I respect that.
I don't think I'm that picky. I actually think I'm a pretty lenient drinker. I'll drink whatever you give me.
No, I think you pretty much just want to drink Jameson.
Speaking of which, that's my third sponsor. It's in this lovely glass provided by Jake Harden and Keegan.
Oh, wrong.
What's his last name?
Downstairs, baby.
Oh, you went downstairs?
Okay.
Well, never mind, Jake. Go fuck yourself.
Oh, that's rude.
Well, I'm a rude boy, dude. Me and Rihanna.
All right. So without further ado, let's go into our typical jargon that we talk about before we get into the main event.
That's mumbo jumbo
Or
madness.
just talk about like what we're actually talking about for the main event, because I don't remember exactly. That's like I just remember Satanic, and then
the brief overview of what we're going to be talking about for the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's a double part.
Is going to be Paul Ingram. He is the only person to ever be actually convicted of crimes related to the Satanic Panic in the United States.
Those who don't know, Satanic Panic happened in the 80s where the rich white ladies really thought that everyone that did drugs and drank was possessed by
the devil. Shit. We fucked it up.
No, it's okay. Or Nancy Reagan. One of the two.
Yeah, I feel like what's the true crime lady from the 80s and the 90s that was like a big deal too?
Couldn't tell you.
It's not Paula Deen. What's her name?
It's not Paula Deen.
Nancy Grace. That's who I'm thinking of. Nancy Grace. 2-part names. It's not a 2-part name. Lee Harvey Oswald is not a 2-part name.
Fair. I digress.
Sarah Michelle Gellar, not a 2-part name.
Okay, so most people's names are a 2-part name. We go with that.
I mean, I guess if you want to just limit it to that, that's fine.
And we're going to talk about the only person who can convict the Satanic or Satanism for the Satanic Panic.
In a sense, yes. There were a ton of accusations and an incredible amount of court cases that came out of the Satanic Panic. Almost every one of them, except for this one case, either was declared mistrial or the charges were dropped because there was zero corroborating evidence. We're going to touch not just on the crimes that were alleged, on the crimes that may or may not have actually happened, as well as the Satanic Panic in general. It's going to be way more in-depth than we even planned on going, but I have a problem where I have to include the context in every single piece of thing that I read. I went through an entire book as well as multiple articles and a few podcasts to compile all of this information into what is going to be our first 2-part episode, and hopefully it doesn't go more than 3 hours.
So
combined, I should say.
So I was going for a simple yes or no checkpoint.
Yeah.
So, hey, is this the first person that's ever been?
The answer is yes.
Yes. So that's what we're talking. All right. Without further ado, we have a couple things to wrap up from last episode. We'll touch quickly.
Yeah, dude, we got to do the bullshit.
Yeah, because we have a lot to do with this main topic, so we can't really get too far. Do you remember which movie we were supposed to watch?
I thought you were going to do that. Do you remember? This night of September.
I hate it.
Okay. I'm done. I won't do it anymore.
Do you remember which movie you said we didn't watch? That means you didn't watch it.
I don't.
Emily.
It was literally over a month and a half ago. Okay, yeah.
To you guys, it was probably a month ago. So it was a lovely Dark and Deep.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
No. Remind me of what it's even about. Because I know that you mentioned it to me. And we're like, hey, dude, I'm on the East Coast. This was literally when you brought this up, you were still living in Asheville. And you're like, hey, this isn't even taking place that far from me. So I was like, dude, that's sweet. I love all these like crazy stories that take place within national parks or in the woods or whatever.
Right, so after I watched it, You didn't watch it, right?
No. I didn't even know that we were supposed to watch it.
Well, we talked about it in the last episode, so you just forgot. It's okay. I edit the videos, so I get to cheat and figure out what we're supposed to talk about now.
Yep.
So anyways, I watched it. It's a horror movie. I'll fill you in, but I'm not gonna
Don't spoil
tell
it.
you a lot about
Wait, you can spoil it.
Wait, what I wanted to tell you is it reminded me of a dream I once had in a national park, but I don't think it was as interesting as my dream.
Okay.
So I had a dream once, and I don't know if you ever listened to Coast to Coast.
Yeah. Which one? Are you Art Bell or George Norrie? It's a real big difference.
We'll go a different. We don't want to go into that.
Okay.
So anyway,
I'm not going to put you on the spot like that.
To Coast to Coast, in Yosemite National Park,
California.
Yes, and we were listening to a podcast about how they talked about men in their 30s. They're like going missing in national parks, or the people are going missing in national parks, and they couldn't explain it, and then they thought the government was covering it.
Yes.
So, I had a dream that night that I was in a national park hiking, and I got abducted by aliens, and I got saved by Bigfoot.
This is why you like Bigfoot so much.
Maybe not Bigfoot, but I thought that might have been a better movie.
That's such a good idea.
Right.
Like Bigfoot's the savior. Like he's here to protect
He
us.
comes in, and he's not even a part of the movie that long. He's just like fucking pushes the trees back, and then you fucking move like super all. You're like, motherfucker's super strong, and then he grabs you, fucking fights his aliens off.
Pulls him out of the beam.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh.
That's interesting because I don't know why, but I always like, I guess for some reason I thought that Sasquatch or whatever variation of Sasquatch, Yeti, this kind of thing was some type of alien. But I'm only thinking that as like, not according to your dream, as a 12-year-old, 15. How old were you? This was way more recently than I expected.
I wish I was 12 years old and dreamt this. I would have heard it down and made millions. But anyways, sorry, I don't want to get too carried away. But
no, this is so good.
Very similar to how this movie goes. The only thing I will say about it is I feel like when this movie depicted national parks and people that go to national parks is someone that's like heard of national parks and has lived in LA their whole life and wrote a horror movie that included it.
So, like, not at all, like, familiar with any parts of what going to a park sounds like.
Eventually, when I watch it, we can do a review on it. But that's it.
Eventually, we will also get into the documentary that I was thinking of that talks about all the missing people in national parks. It's called Missing 411, which is information.
And it's really hard to find that.
It is, because it's been scrubbed, because it is literally about a government thing.
Yeah.
So the government is able to take control of it, and they can scrub it from whatever site they choose to. It pops up on YouTube is where I've seen it.
But really should.
And yeah, bad qualities, because it's a recording of the movie.
I feel like.
Anyways, I love that we brought that up, because
suspects.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll get there eventually. Love that.
What else were we supposed to watch?
We were supposed to watch. You watched Lovely, Dark and Deep, right?
So it starts with Lovely, right?
Yeah. It was called Lover, Stalker, Killer. And the only reason I remember that is because it's the craziest fucking story I've ever heard. So, you watched it, right?
I feel like it's the same shit that I hear on every other podcast.
Mr. Ballin is the only one that like does stories like this, but it's
on Netflix, right?
The only reason why I would liken it to like a Mr. Ballin is because he, I think, like does a good job of hiding key information as he's telling a story. Mm-hmm. And then after you're like listening to the story, he'll tell you it within the last 5 minutes, right? He tells the whole story and then leaves out all these important details and kind of like tricks you. Whereas like this documentary, kind of does that, but the story itself is so ridiculous that it's not even like meant to trick you. So anyways, it's about this guy.
Okay, real quick, what's it like?
So this guy is dating this woman, right? They're seeing each other, and also forgive me if I get any of this wrong. It's been over 3 months since I watched this. Okay. So this guy is dating this woman, and she is cool, and they have a lot of fun together. All of a sudden, this guy's ex-wife kind of comes back into the picture. She has like kids and stuff like that, and he's having to take the kids on some days and stuff like that. And this ex-girlfriend gets like a little bit pissed off about it and brings it up to him. And he's like, well, hey, like, no offense, but like the kids are my life. I'm taking care of them no matter what. So if you don't want to be part of that, that's totally fine. His girlfriend then reports that she was shot or shot at. I can't remember if she actually got shot by this woman that is driving the same car that his ex-wife drives, right? And so all of a sudden, he like takes care of this lady because his psycho ex-wife is trying to kill her. And then they kind of bond a little bit. And then, am I missing something? Is it an ex-wife or is it just an ex-girlfriend?
Ex-wife. Did you like met a girl and then the big time they took it off and a couple times they were dating?
That's what it is.
They broke up, and then he started dating another girl, and then
I'm confusing a Mr. Ballin story. I'm totally serious.
Yes. So, and then that other girl claims that this girl tried to kill her, and then another girl claimed that other girl tried to kill her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come to realize
we don't. I feel like we don't spoil it.
Okay, we don't spoil anything.
Yeah, that's it.
It's this guy that is trapped in between two insane women.
Yes,
is what we will say. Lover, Stalker, Killer. It's definitely still on Netflix, I believe.
Yes.
Or was it HBO? Okay, Netflix. Go check it out. It is, in my opinion, maybe not Jamie's, but in my opinion, one of the craziest stories I've ever heard of in my entire life.
Fair enough.
Where are we at next, Jamie? What do we got?
Well, we usually talk about things that, although in movies that we were looking at.
Oh yeah, things that scare us, spooky stuff.
Things that scare us, or things that we kind of looked up. And I think I was mentioning earlier, and you had no idea about this, that there is an active serial killer in this.
Yeah, these are the things that scare me. I had something, just kidding, I didn't, but he's like, dude, did you hear about that? Literally right before we started this episode, he's like, oh, did you hear about that active serial killer that's in Texas? And I'm like, no, I didn't hear about that. Why have I not heard about that? That's insane.
Because you don't TikTok, bro.
I don't TikTok. It weirds me out. It's too close.
Too close to what?
It's too close. Like it's right here.
So I'll just.
There's no borders on.
I'm gonna give the Google Eye description.
Have you seen all of like the bad Google AIs? It's like a whole thing. Like, dude, running with scissors can be excellent exercise as long as you don't trip.
As long as you're running.
Exactly. That's like literally what it's saying. It's like Google AI is now writing articles, and they're putting out full-on articles just compiling information saying like running is always a good option. Just don't stab yourself in the eye with scissors.
All right. So I'm reading this article.
This is maybe breaking. We might be breaking this news completely.
So I'm reading an article from the San Antonio Current that says, serial killer hysteria returns to Austin after another body pulled from Lady Bird Lake. So I'm pretty sure this is as of February.
Okay.
So, on Monday afternoon, the Austin Police Department held a press conference confirming that this body is recovered. It's unclear how long the corpse, which has no identifiers, was in the water or whether it has any wounds. Public information officer area crimes reported. Homicide is actively investigated this as a death. So they're saying this is definitely a homicide.
Yeah. Yeah, anytime people are like found like with wounds in the water, it's a good guess.
And I don't know. I think it's all exterior.
Dog, you are unwittingly stepping into my wheelhouse. I didn't expect this when you told me about this. This is straight up. We'll keep researching this.
Yeah.
This is part of the smiley face killings. No. This is part of the smiley face killings, dude.
Also, they think it's at least 10. They found at least 10 bodies. I'm pretty sure.
In Texas alone?
Austin.
In Austin.
In the city.
Okay.
There's an ages of men.
Yes. Dude, this is straight up another version. Like, I think the smiley face killings is one very real. I think that it is a collective group of people that are murdering under like not for any reason. Consider them like jokers. Like they are just there to cause mayhem. They are there because they can.
Sorry.
He's got something he's looking up. But I have looked into multiple, like lots and lots. I've gone through the smiley face killings a lot. This sounds like all men, like the smiley face killings, it's all men. They're all found usually after nights of going out drinking in bodies of water. This is par for the course for the smiley face killings.
From
Okay.
Island. Put it on the.
This is cool.
Yes, as a hustler.
Let's hear the research, right?
You guys, how at this point can this all just be a coincidence? Austin Police Homicide Unit say that they are investigating yet another body that's being pulled from the Lady Bird Lake on Monday as a homicide. Police have not yet released the identity of the person that was discovered on Monday, but this latest discovery has a lot of people in the area talking about the possibility, and the rumor mill is swirling about a serial killer on the loose in the area. Police are really downplaying any kind of a connection between the people that have been pulled from the river. There are up to 19 of them that are possible victims of this killer, and they are saying that there's no real connection, there's no foul play to be suspected at this point. But we do know that all of these victims are males, and they range in age between 20 and 30. And this has been ongoing for quite some time. Quite a few people that have been pulled from that river, and people in the area are just really starting to say, we don't buy this.
It's not a coincidence. This is all part of a large group.
So what are your thoughts? What do you think?
I don't know. Have you seen, there's a movie that came out called The Smiley Face Killings.
No.
And in the movie, it's postulated, just like as we'll get to in this episode, that this is actually cult activity and that they are sacrificing people to their god.
Like Son of Sam?
Kind of.
And I guess
his dog just told him to kill people, is what he claimed. No, Richard Ramirez was killing people for Satan because he listened to a lot of Metallica. So that's crazy though. I did not know that this was that prolific. I like here and there you see stories of specifically men aged 20 to 40 ending up in the water, especially not found right away, like found like weeks, which in a place like Austin is highly suspicious. So that means that these guys, like more often is the case that these guys have been held somewhere and then put into the water. They're not in the water for 2 weeks. They're put in the water for a day and a half, but they are somewhere else dead for 2 weeks and then placed into the water. It's people find these bodies months after people have been disappeared.
They just find a body. Like we're on the job by a lake and just find a body.
Do you ever see Stand By Me, dude? That's such a good movie.
All right. Next thing that I also started.
Roll on, dude.
So
you got good shit coming right here.
She sent this to me after this.
Which one? You have 5.
My sister Sarah's. It's not possible killer on the loose. Because they found multiple sets of high seals in a western
Where?
Oh, yeah, it says west.
You don't have the where this has taken place?
Of course, it's Grand Junction.
Oh, of course it's Junction. Yeah.
That's Grand Junction. So, and I have one more video I'll show you.
Okay. Now, Junction is the same place that we had the head with the heads in the refrigerator.
The guy that just killed us because he won.
Oh, did they solve that? I don't know about that
It
one.
was the guy in the freezer.
Yeah, there was it just one head?
What?
I thought it was multiple like heads in a fridge,
Multiple items yet.
which is crazy.
Sir, I don't know.
A quick breakdown on that. Some person bought a home, right? And then moved into that home, and there was a fridge that was left there by the previous owner.
Yes.
And inside the head, or like inside the fridge left by the previous owner, was a head as well as other body parts. Correct? It was just a head.
See, I'm next. It was to the Chimney murder.
Yeah.
I like this. Like starts to make me think of another guy. So that it's sort of
Yeah.
But yes, there's one Grand Junction still open. No one I've seen the kid in Grand Junction that killed the homeless guy just because he weren't on the railroad tracks.
Okay.
And then he put his head in the freezer. And then when they asked him why, he said, I wanted to figure out why he killed him.
Out here testing out a truck and four-wheel.
All right, what do we got?
I came across a pond that I'd never seen out here before.
This is literally right where my girlfriend is camping at the
Very
moment.
remote location in western Colorado along the Brook Cliffs.
This right he said it's along the Brook Cliffs. That's literally where she's camping out.
18 pairs that I have found out here, and not a big surprise to see a high heel out in the desert by a pond. Thought that's weird. Somebody left their shoes out here. 2 more sets of high heels, and they are all in the shoreline of this shallow pond here that I'm going to show you guys here. I was told it was probably nothing, but I would love to know why there's a super remote, very difficult to get to pond in the middle of the desert that is not a nice place to party. It's not a nice place to be. Is that we found 10 pairs of women's high heels, and every single pair is,
so,
for lack of better terms,
also,
very,
I haven't seen anything like you missing. I think this one's good.
It sounds to me like someone's having fun.
Yeah.
Someone's like, hey, I'm going to take all these fucking boots out here and fuck with people, leaving them at this remote pond.
Yeah, I haven't seen, like, I tried to look up to see if there was, like,
we will keep on that one, but my guess is that one is going to go to the wayside because there's going to be no evidence.
Austin, Gary,
Yes.
You're good.
No, dude. Well, yep. Not recently. I haven't heard about the shit that's going on in Austin. So that's all good.
All right.
There's no need to be sorry.
That's all I have.
Yeah, I don't really.
You know, it's not driving about you. Are you ready to?
I think we're ready to roll.
Fast. Satan.
Yeah, I think we're ready. Yeah.
You start us off? Well, in case you do all this whole thing, because I don't.
Well, you just had one of these, so I'm gonna have one. We'll get rolling.
Awkward pop.
I'm trying to turn off the battery mode. Battery safety mode. How do I do that?
I have no idea.
Battery. Low power mode. Off. Perfect.
Nice.
All right, we ready to roll?
Ready to roll.
Alrighty. On April 8th, 2003, Paul Ingram received his first breath of fresh air as a free man in 15 years. At the time of his imprisonment, he was and still remains the only person to have been convicted as a result of the cultural phenomenon known as the Satanic Panic of the 1980s and 90s. Fucking crazy. All right, let's go back 15 years to the day of Paul Ingram's arrest. On November 28th, 1988, Paul Ingram was initially informed of the accusations made by his own daughters, Erica and Julie, about sexual abuse perpetrated upon them. Up to this point, Paul had served as the chief civil deputy of the sheriff's department in Olympia, Washington, as well as the chairman of the local Republican Party. This is not an indictment on political parties at all. Up to this point, Paul had served as the chief civil deputy of the sheriff's department in Olympia, Washington, as well as the chairman of the. I just read that. Looking, all right.
Go again.
Paul was also an active member of the Church of Living Water. It's a fundamentalist Pentecostal Protestant church. As sheriff's deputy, he was often regarded as a hard ass who would write someone a speeding ticket for going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. However, his file showed that there were no complaints, and people generally seemed to like their interactions or come away with their interactions with Paul in a positive light.
We interrupt real quick.
Go.
What's that Pentecostal church? So a short answer, because I know you have a lot to talk about, but I was just curious.
There's a lot of like laying of hands, speaking in tongues.
It's like the people you see that, whoa, 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 and then fall down and stuff.
Yes. They like a lot of times like I don't know a ton about Pentecostal churches. Consider them just another it's another spinoff of like evangelicalism, where like Jesus and God like are like real things that can come to you as a person, and they often do.
Jesus, he knows me. I digress.
I don't know that reference, so I'm gonna just keep on rolling.
Sorry to interrupt. I just was curious.
Upon arriving at the sheriff's office that morning, where he showed up for work, the morning of his arrest, he was in discussions with head sheriff Gary Edwards and under sheriff Neil McClanahan. Upon breaking the news of the allegations to Paul, he claimed to have not remembered ever abusing his daughters. But if it came to be that he had abused them, it needed to be taken care of, in his own words. Paul often used the phrase, "I can't see myself doing it." This will be a very commonly recurring style of speaking that is a huge part of the case. Does that make sense? He's like referring to all these things in like a third person kind of narrative where he's like,
No idea. Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine myself doing that, or like if I was gonna do that, I would do it this way or whatever. We'll get into it because I have direct like
Yeah. It's called deny, deny, deny.
which would normally be the case in these cases. However, not in this one, which is also a huge part of this. After a brief interview, as we said, with Gary Edwards and Neil McClanahan, Paul was escorted to be interviewed by Detective Joe Vukic and Brian Schoening. Both of them were in the sex division, the sex crimes division of the Thurston County Sheriff's Department. Yeah, dude, the sex division. Yeah, they know it. All right. After several hours of interviews with Vukic and Schoening, Ingram decided to make somewhat of a confession to where he believes or expresses his belief that he did abuse his daughters. He also claimed that he repressed the memories of such things. Therefore, he could not recall having actually done what his daughters were claiming. And when asked why he was confessing to something that he couldn't remember, he responded by saying that his girls know him best and they wouldn't lie about something like this, so it must be true. He also stated that his daughters had been acting weird the last few years and that he had had trouble expressing love and affection towards them, so that the abuse would explain why they were acting weird, because they had been sexually assaulted by him. Apparently this all makes sense in his mind, right?
Yeah.
Again,
Kind of wrap it in my mind right now.
detectives asked Paul for specific instances, right? You can't just like, yeah, I think I did that, or maybe I think that I possibly could have done that. Like, they're like, hey, like we need specific instances of this. And when they pressed him on that, he claimed that he can't remember any of it because he had repressed it. It had only been recently that the sheriff's department that Paul had worked at, that these detectives had worked at, that other people that are later involved in this case had been through an entire briefing on psychological phenomenon known as repressed memories. The detectives believed that Paul was guilty because often suspects will employ the technique of not remembering in order to get out of admitting to anything. But this was not the case with Paul, because he was already confessing to having committed assaults that he was being accused of. He just couldn't remember having done it. And again, used the phrase, I don't or I can't see myself having done this. Knowing the suspects who say they can't remember having done a crime and are not denying the crime are often on the precipice of admitting guilt, both of the detectives told Paul that in admitting the guilt to his crimes and saying that he had done it, it would actually let the memories come back to him. This is something that continuously gets mentioned again and again, not just by the detectives. They have multiple people that come in throughout the case, ministers, pastors, therapists, and psychologists who come in and say, you just have to admit to what you did, and then you'll be able to remember what happened. It just never happens.
Except the cop version. You just like sit there for 17 hours and just like hit someone in the face with it until they finally like go crazy in a minute.
Well, yeah, but like, so like what we need to like keep in mind here is that Paul is also part of this department. He knows these guys like incredibly well. He knows the people that outside of this one psychologist or psychiatrist that comes in, he knows the pastor that comes in. He asks for his pastor to be there. And his pastor tells him, hey, admit it. 1, you'll be forgiven. 2, all the memories will come back if you just admit that you've done it. Right now, you're hiding from it. Don't hide from it. Embrace it. Let it become you. You will be forgiven. It's just insane. We'll get further into this as we go through the case. I should preface now that we are wading into somewhat muddy territories as far as, I don't know what do we call this? Like victim statements or believing in victims. This is not an easy case.
No, I think like either way, someone's going to be upset if you like take an opinion on either side. I think the best thing to do is to just say the information and not give your personal.
That's fair.
State the facts, man.
I
know you're already trying to lean.
I am already leaning, and I will tell you right now that I'm already like I've written this.
Convinced?
I am convinced. I have my own personal beliefs, but we will, especially maybe a little bit in this episode, but certainly in the next episode, discuss our feelings about how this case has gone down, because I have my own opinions, and this is by no means expressing either the views of both of us. Obviously, we're maybe have different opinions on this stuff, but
I better remember this case. I listened to it.
I sent you one podcast about it.
This was like 37 podcasts or stories ago. So
I'm not saying that I do not believe victims. I think that needs to be made clear. I think that this specific case has a lot of issues where police railroaded not just victims or suspects or witnesses, but all of them into a narrative to prop up their own story as far as developing a case, but also for news coverage.
See, I also, other side of this, I could see how a sheriff would say things because they know what they need to say.
Yep. There's weird stuff 100% through this whole case that is like, makes you scratch your head and say like, and we'll get into that. When they come up, I like very much make a point of being like, these things are weird. They don't make any sense why these things that the defense claims happened. We should note that Paul Ingram not only pleaded guilty, but served 15 of his 20 years for these crimes. So at no point was he given a retrial, and at no point was he released early because he was, given pardon for his conviction. All right. we kind of got off track there for a minute, but
It's okay.
So knowing that so the detectives know that suspects who can't remember having done a crime and are right on the precipice of a crime say they can't remember things, and sometimes if you convince them to like admit something, they can remember it. At this point, Paul entered this, and this happens multiple times through this story, not just to Paul, mostly within his family. There is another implicated person later in the story who also goes through a similar thing. It's been described as a trance or a fugue state. And it's kind of like when you disassociate with yourself and you go, like they describe it as a trance. And he starts describing a scene, and this is direct from transcript interview with the detectives. He enters Erica's bedroom, his oldest daughter, and removes his bathrobe. And this is where the transcript starts. Then he said, I would have moved her clothing, at least the underpants or the bottoms, to the nightgown. Okay. You say you would have, one of the detectives said. Now, do you mean you would have, or did you? I did, Ingram said. After you pulled down her bottom, where did you touch her? I touched her on the breast, and I touched her on the vagina. When did you say to her, or what did you say to her when you woke up? I believe I would have told her to be quiet and, not to say anything to anybody, and threatened her to say that I would kill her if she told anybody about this, Ingram said. Okay, you say you would have. Is that you would have, or did you? Ingram responded, yeah, I did. And where did you go when you left her room? Ingram responded, I would have gone back to bed with my wife. That was just a segment from the actual transcript interview that we have between Paul and Detective Vukic. By the time the interview ended hours later, Paul had admitted to having sex with his daughters on numerous occasions, beginning when Erica was 5. He had also admitted to impregnating Julie, his other daughter, and having taken her to get an abortion when she was 15. The confessions, unfortunately for Paul, weren't dissimilar to the allegations made by his own daughters, but were full of difficult subjunctive phrases, like we mentioned, phrases like would have instead of did. The detectives were shocked by Paul's seeming indifference while admitting the details he was confessing. Had this case simply ended with Paul's expressing guilt to these crimes, it's very unlikely that we would even be talking about this case today. However, the whole Paul Ingram's sorry.
It's okay.
This is where I missed an edit.
Sound it out.
However, the whole Paul Ingram case would give rise to wild speculation and examination of psychological techniques, police work, and a cultural phenomenon associated with this case known as the Satanic Panic. All right. At this point, we're going to discuss Paul's life before the crimes. Paul and his wife Sandy had a small farm outside of Olympia that they always thought of as their own way to a self-sustainable future. Okay, stop me.
So, I might have. Okay, I would have done this. I would have done this, and this. This is oddly specific. Very like on the nose.
Correct.
Someone that's like, well, whatever you would have done. Like you hear someone say, well, like take me back to what you thought you would have done. People better. It's just like that for detail. It's like I would have done this, and I would have done
Correct.
me.
Immediately, your initial reaction, just like these detectives, is to believe one, to believe your victims. That's obviously like,
Yes, I agree.
you don't want to presume guilt on anyone, but you have to approach the case from a discovery standpoint. And what these initial interviews are, the first interview was not nearly as bad. There comes a character later who will taint this entire case and make it so much more speculative.
It just seems
They call it leading, and we get into a lot of leading throughout this case, and it's what I think throws the entire case out the window as far as credibility's sake goes.
I'm just saying, like, it's oddly specific of what Paul says about what he would have done. First, like, unless he has an awesome imagination, because he's a cop, so he would know a lot, but...
Right. And we'll get back, we'll get into that for sure. Yeah, don't worry. We will get to that.
I don't get it.
All right, let's keep rolling.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
No, you were like, and that's perfect, because I need that throughout this whole thing.
That's what I'm getting. You play it.
Like we said, Paul and Sandy had this farm that they had outside Olympia at the time of his arrest. Paul's family was described as the model family, specifically by other people involved with their weird-ass church, I'm going to say. Paul and Sandy met at Spokane Community College in 1964. Paul was a janitor at a local dairy plant, and Sandy was a part-time maid while also going to school. She served 2 years in a convent, meaning she intended to be a nun, for some time. On the other hand, Paul had attended Catholic school and had studied for the priesthood. At one point, Paul admitted that he was largely doing this to please his own mother's wishes. Like I said, Paul spent 3 years in seminary school training to be a priest. However, all of that disappeared the moment he met Sandy. When Paul and Sandy met, he was still a virgin. However, that would change on their third date. The couple would soon become pregnant and marry right after that. The couple would marry.
Say that? You just assume that.
What?
You just assume that they ain't?
No, this is all documented. Yep. They married in February 1965. They met in the fall of 1964. Were married in this early, like in February 1965. Both were 19, and they had only known each other for 5 months by that point.
And then married?
Yep. It's 60s, dude.
Good.
It's not that crazy. They're probably going to war at some point, dude. Not that war. We're talking about Nam, dude. Although, I think, yeah, no, he still would have been able to go to Nam. All right, anyways, Paul came from not necessarily like a bad upbringing, but a pretty poor upbringing. His father constantly dealt with back pain, and his mother held the entire family together. Paul was one of 7 children. Paul recalls his mother and father showing far more affection for each other than they did for himself or any of his siblings. This is something that Paul would echo in his own marriage, which kind of speaks, in my opinion, to the reason why any of this happened. Sandy was one of 4 children. Her family did have a history of hereditary mental diseases. She wanted a large family, and Paul begrudgingly allowed that. Paul and Sandy's first son, born Paul Ross, was born on September 19th, 1965, right after they got married, or 9 months after they got married, I guess. Erica and Andrea were twins, born September 1966, 1 year later. Andrea was born very sickly. Erica was born plump, very healthy. Doctors assured Sandy and Paul that Andrea would be fine. However, tests eventually revealed that she had spinal meningitis. She spent a few years with the family and was eventually committed to a state asylum because they didn't know how to take care of her.
So these first,
Yes. So we have Paul Ross, who's the first child. Then we have the twins, Andrea and Erica. We don't hear from Andrea pretty much ever again. She dies in state asylum mid-teens. Way longer than she was expected to live. But Erica, we hear from a lot. She is the primary source for all of the, let's call it, contention that the couple have. The couple's second son, Chad, was born in 1968. Also in 1968, Paul took a job as an investigator for a retail credit card company, and moved from Spokane to Olympia. Their, I guess, third daughter, Julie, was born in 1970. With Julie's birth, the family sought a larger house and found their forever home at that 10-acre house, or 10-acre plot outside of Olympia. The boys had one bedroom and the girls had another. The children express, and that matters later as we get on through the story. Dude, it's all tying together. I promise. You wonder why my stories are so long, but this shit all has context. It all matters in the grand scheme of things. The children expressed that once they were of working age, they were regarded far less, like over the age of 5, they were no longer children. They were now workers. They were meant to tend to the farm.
6?
Yeah. Yep, pretty much. Once they were of working age, termed by these girls, they were no longer children. They were now workers. In 1969, Paul began work as a police officer in Lacey, Washington, which was kind of where they actually lived outside of Olympia. Super small town. I think it was like 2,000-3,000 people. Later, in 1971, in 1972, Paul would be brought into the Thurston County Sheriff's Department. So he was no longer a local police officer. He was moved into the Thurston County Sheriff's Office and was asked to join the force full-time. In his first patrols as a rookie, he would often ride along with fellow rookie Neil McClanahan. The two struck up a good relationship, as well as joined a rotating poker game that would go from one cop's house to another cop's house several times a month.
That also will make a lot more sense later, right?
It really is the main thing. Both of those things. Neil McClanahan, we brought up earlier. He was Paul's superior, and was the one that eventually brings the charges against Paul. But the big thing is the poker parties.
Spoiler alert. Big thing.
Yep.
Sorry that I kid.
In 1972, Paul began an affair with an older divorced woman of the Lutheran faith. The two often discussed ideas on religion, and Paul found it nice to discuss something outside of work and how to raise children. The affair sputtered out when it became evident that Paul wasn't going to leave his wife for this other woman.
You get it?
Yeah, I don't know how old she was. I think she was maybe like 5 years older than he was. Dog, I'm straight up reporting. I don't know if I need to mention sources, but I probably should at the end. So, but anyways, so affair definitely took a toll on the family, particularly on Sandy. Oh yeah. Yep. This eventually also though brought them closer. Paul and Sandy would often take the children on long camping trips for all the summer vacations, like multiple months. They'd just go. I don't know. It's the 70s. I guess you just like can take like 3 months off of work, something like that. I don't know. It's pretty silly.
Okay. 4 days off.
But again, as we mentioned earlier, like this couple, just like Paul's family, the parents were highly affectionate towards each other, like outwardly. It seems almost to a gross kind of standpoint, whereas they were like very strict and stern with their children. Okay, I stand corrected. The family did not move to the permanent residence off of Fir Tree Road outside of Olympia until the summer of 1976. While they received help from Paul's friends and the Thurston County Sheriff's Department, some of those things included installing septic tanks as well as plumbing work. The electrician that worked in the Thurston County Sheriff's Office was Jim Raby. He will be brought up later. While Paul and Sandy seem to have found their paradise where they grew gardens, raised animals such as chickens and goats as well as cattle, the children felt that the property was isolated and that the children were viewed by Paul and Sandy as just worker bees with hours and hours and hours of chores to complete every single day. When Sandy began going to the Evergreen Christian Center, a non-denominational Christian center, Paul noticed a softening in her. I don't know what that means exactly, but I kind of get it. It was just, it fit her better as a partner than her being a highly strict Catholic. Transitioning from being like very stern, these are the rules kind of Catholic person to maybe a little more relaxed kind of person as a non-denominational Christian. From this, there was a distinct sexual charge between Paul and Sandy. They slept in the nude in a waterbed.
Oh, yeah.
And according to Paul, they had sex at least every other day. As expressed earlier, when the parents had affection towards each other, they were stern and emotionally reserved with their children. Paul outlawed all music in the home, specifically rock and roll. Pretty much anything that was not Christian or gospel music.
Then why are you having sex in a waterbed naked, dude?
That's rock and roll, isn't it?
That's rock and roll.
That's like the definition of rock and roll.
Why are you bragging about having a waterbed and having sex?
It literally, all this, and like the crazy thing is like, this information isn't coming from outside of police interviews. These are coming from police interviews. He's like, yo, dude, we straight up fucked,
But
dude.
those kids do not get to listen to rock and roll.
Fuck those kids.
I don't believe this guy.
No, well,
I don't believe
maybe,
this guy for a second.
maybe fuck those kids too, but like,
I don't believe this guy. This sucks, dude. Big time. Fuck him.
I'm just saying. Yep. They just fucking lounged out naked all the time in the waterbed, just banging all the time. The kids were just like, hey, go fucking find rocks in the pasture. Do it, or you're fucking grounded.
Read your sermon.
Literally that kind of shit. It's like, man, fucking pick a side. All right, in 1978, Sandy found herself once again pregnant with their third son and fifth child.
So you're fucking all the time, dude.
Mark. For some reason, at this point, Paul saw the birth of Mark as a call to be a better father. However, this extended only to Mark, as Paul babied and coddled Mark, whereas the other children were treated as worker bees. Whereas other children were treated as worker bees with a never-ending list of chores. Paul's treatment of Mark sparked resentment among the rest of his children.
I just want to say
Worker bees. While he was stern and demanding with the previous 4 children, he would coddle Mark, not making him do chores, reading to him every night as a child, which he never did for any of his other children, as well as buying Mark a new computer and playing computer games with Mark on that computer. This dude that was like a total... This is, yeah, the mid-80s. 85, probably.
How big this dude? Sheriff.
Dude, you could be so rich, like, literally doing, like, a nothing job in the 80s. I'm just saying. I don't know for sure, because I wasn't even born then. You could tell me more about that.
That's expensive shit. Now look at you. All right. And this day. This kid on a sheriff's salary. Got it. All right, fees.
Yep.
Go on.
All right. Because of this, Paul's older sons treated from him like they were like, fuck you, dude. We're out of here. And kind of what they say, like, developed a penchant for like having independent secret lives. In 1984, the eldest son, Paul Ross, turned down an appointment to West Point, which had been arranged by his father, and he left the house after having his third car accident in less than 3 months. He parked the crashed car in the cemetery and left a note for Sandy saying that he'd fallen in with a dangerous crowd and said not to try to reach out to him because he'd be in South America by the time they got it. Yeah. The oldest son. Now, at this point, he's probably 25.
He wrecked 3 cars.
In 3 months.
They kept buying cars?
I don't know if they kept buying him cars or what the deal was. The second son, yeah, dude, the family is psycho. And that's, I think, an important thing to remember.
We'll get back to
the family. We will get back to it. The family is definitely psycho, dude. But it doesn't mean we'll get there. All right. The second son, Chad, also left the home while still in high school to live in an apartment in downtown Olympia. He would, shortly after moving out, be arrested for shoplifting and move back home. Eric and Julie definitely thought that Mark was the favorite child and was completely spoiled by Paul. Although separated by 4 years, Erica and Julie were always seen as a pair. However, Erica was described as moody and assertive, but confident. I'm just pointing at you. That's you, dude.
I'm moody and confident.
Moody, assertive, confident.
Thank you.
It's a
Thank you for your
compliment.
crazy-
Whereas Julie was actually seen as bubbly and outgoing, although somewhat reserved in social interactions, outshined by her sister Erica.
Just plan this in your head.
I did not write this, dude. I didn't write this.
Is that what you're supposed to say?
No. I didn't say that at all. I didn't infer it. I didn't infer it at all.
Moody what?
Assertive, but confident.
Sounds like a terrible person.
Am I bubbly and outgoing, although somewhat reserved in social interactions?
So we're murderers? Is what you're saying?
No. We were raped by our father.
There's already can relate on these girls.
The last part is the most important. Even though Julie was outgoing and social, she was always outshined by Erica, the beauty of the family. That's you, dude. Look at that mustache. At the age of 22, Erica was still living at home, working as a tour guide at the Washington State Capitol, as well as intermittently attending college, studying sign language, where she served, as often times, the interpreter for her own church. Erica had her sight set on a bigger world outside of Olympia. However, in the year of 1998, she traveled to both Greece as well as South Korea for the Olympics. Yeah, she was actually a translator. Yep. Julie, on the other hand, was described as more of a homebody. She took after her mother and did not wear extravagant clothing. She also won the Future Homemakers of America Award 2 years in a row for architectural design.
Congrats.
Yep. She went on to travel, like go to nationals for that, but that's pretty much the only travel that she actually did. Both girls did share one common ground. Neither was much for dating. Even at 22, Erica had only been on 3 dates in the last 2 years. Both girls remembering informing Sandy that they were virgins and intended to remain so until marriage. Pretty much, yeah. All right. When the Evergreen Christian Center became too big of a church and the Ingrams felt lost within the community, they moved to the Church of Living Water Pentecostal Church in Olympia. The family was incredibly involved in the church. Sandy started a clothing donation drive through the church, as well as Erica translating sign language for the church as well. Erica became so involved with the church that she convinced Paul to adopt 2 young girls in the long run, and they were totally deaf. That's why she asked to adopt them. It was incredibly difficult for Paul and Sandy to be able to communicate with them because Erica straight up just brought them in and then just bailed.
That's right.
Yeah. I have my thoughts on Erica, and I just don't.
Well, it's because
I don't want to wear it too hard. I don't want to put it too far out of my sleeve. I just have my thoughts.
She's a lover, dude.
Erica?
Yeah, she's assertive.
Confident.
She brought 2.
She's a cold bitch.
No,
she is a cold bitch.
She convinced her parents to bring 2 kids in.
And then she left.
Well, she had
what? Go to Greece.
To Greece.
She was going to fucking Santorini to fucking wear bathing suits.
For the Olympics. You said it.
I said it. You're right.
Yes, you pinned her and I together.
This brings us to maybe the most important part of this case.
Keep saying that. What is it?
The heart-to-heart retreat. The Church of Living Water, which the Ingrams went to, sponsored an annual 2-day retreat called a heart-to-heart retreat, in which teenage female members would take part in this camp at a nearby lake. Both Erica and Julie had attended the heart-to-heart camp for several years. By the time it was 1998, Julie was a member. However, Erica was too old to be a member, but she was returning as a camp counselor. At this retreat, the topic of sexual abuse would often be discussed between teens and counselors. And the people that ran the camp in 1983. No, all right. So,
We're going back.
however, in 1983, Erica had actually disclosed an attempted rape by a family friend who had given her a ride home and attempted to rape her, according to her. The camp counselors took Erica's accusations very seriously and informed the police, at which time Detective Jim Raby investigated the accusation and found there was little evidence of attempted sexual assault. It was deemed that the man had put his hand on Erica's leg, but nothing else more had happened. In 1985, Julie had claimed that she was sexually abused by a neighbor that lived on the Ingram property. Just so you know, these are all taking place at this heart-to-heart conference.
Okay. Christians that act like
Paul took Lee
chicks.
to the county prosecutor's office to file this claim. Piggybacking off her sister's accusations, Erica also claimed that this neighbor had sexually assaulted her as well. During the course of the investigation, Julie became less and less able to speak accurately about the case, and investigators eventually dropped the case due to a myriad of inconsistencies between Julie, Erica's, and the stories in general. At the 1998 Heart to Heart conference, an evangelical celebrity, Carla Franco, who starred in multiple sitcoms, she was like one of those like Christian comedian types, had like, I don't know, dude. But anyways, she was a celebrity and would often do these speeches. Carla claimed during her speeches that she could channel or feel the Holy Spirit working through her, and that oftentimes the Lord would present her with images or words in which she was to communicate.
We call that narcissism.
We do. And one of these images presented to Carla during this speech, or during one of her speeches at this conference, was that of a little girl enclosed in a metal closet with a small gap of light coming through and footsteps approaching. At the mention of this, one of the girls in the audience stood up, screamed that it was her who was trapped in that closet. Again, Carla also claimed to have been presented with the image of a girl being molested by a relative, at which one of the girls in the audience rushed out to the bathroom. She was found in the bathroom with her head in the toilet, apparently trying to drown herself.
Jesus.
Okay. Crazy. Following that specific speech, a large number of the girls claimed that they had been sexually molested by a relative of theirs. In the afternoon of the last day, all the campers had gotten on buses. However, Erica, not being a member, but as a counselor, didn't need to be on a bus. They found her in the common area in this convention center, passed out on the floor, crying. She would not tell anyone what was wrong until eventually Erica declared, "I had been sexually abused by my father." The counselor that related this information to the police claimed that Erica was devastated by even saying that. However, we have another account of what happened. And that account comes from Carla Franco, the aforementioned psycho who made this speech at this thing. And she said that upon hearing that Erica was despondent on the floor of the conference center, she was asked to pray over Erica. When Carla asked what she needed prayer for, the counselor shrugged. As Carla began praying over Erica, she claimed that the word molestation presented itself to her. She spoke to Erica, "You have been abused as a child, sexually abused." She continued, "It's by her father, and it's been happening for years," to which Erica began to sob hysterically. Carla urged Erica to go to counseling to address the memories of the abuse that she had suffered. Not long after the heart-to-heart retreat did Erica and Julie both move out of the house. Erica left at the end of September 1998, leaving behind Julie as well as the two deaf girls Erica had talked her parents into taking care of. Julie would leave 6 weeks after that. Both moved in with friends and would not tell their parents where they had gone. The leaving of Julie and Erica hurt Paul and Sandy deeply as they noticed a trend in their children fleeing and hiding from them. At a church service the Sunday before Thanksgiving, Paul asked Julie if she would go to lunch with him and talk about why she had moved out, which she agreed to happily. While Paul and Julie were at lunch, Erica went to lunch with Sandy and brought along a friend and the fellow heart-to-heart camp counselor who had disclosed all of this to the cops, Paula Davis. At this lunch, Erica disclosed that she had been repeatedly molested by her father when she was young. She also disclosed that the older brothers had also been molested. It was in this disclosure that Erica linked the molestation and abuse to the poker parties hosted by Paul in their home. She claimed that the abuse stopped when Paul was born again into the Pentecostal church in 1975. Of course. As soon as he was a Pentecostal, now he's good at it now. When Sandy asked why she didn't ever tell her, she claimed, "Mom, I did tell you. I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen." To which Davis added, the friend, "You were the only one in the family that didn't know." Sandy returned from that lunch and confronted Paul about the abuse. He responded, "I never touched the girls." Sandy also called the assistant pastor, John Bratoon, who had apparently heard about the allegations from counselors and leaders at the group. He reportedly told her that the accusations were probably true because children didn't make these kinds of things up. The next day, Sandy drove Julie to school, and Julie confirmed that not only had Paul abused her, but also her oldest brother, Paul Ross. She claimed that the last time she was molested was 5 years earlier, when she had been 13. The next day...
What year was that?
This is taking place in 1988, this whole disclosure.
74, so 1998.
Paul was reborn into the Pentecostal church in 1975,
okay.
Right? So 5 years before had been 1983. Yep.
Thank you.
Which is far past when Erica said that Paul had been totally fine again, right? The next day, after Julie had disclosed these things to her mother, she was taken to meet with investigators by a local rape crisis counselor. One of these detectives was Joe Vukic. Her story differed from that relayed to Sandy, but was far more detailed. She claimed the abuse started when she was in 5th grade. She claimed Paul would sneak into the room where Erica and Julie slept, either wearing shorts or completely naked, and would go into bed with them and get into bed with one of the girls and have vaginal or anal sex with them. As Julie told her story, she began to hide more and more behind her dark brown hair. Some questions Julie would intentionally ignore, and other questions she would take an extremely long time to answer, up to 10 minutes, like per answer. Detectives are just kind of sitting there, waiting, prodding, wondering, "Come on, Julie," that kind of stuff. Yep. Concerning the events may have passed the statute of limitations, investigators pressed Julie for more recent events, getting her to admit to abuse as recent as 3 years before. She mirrored Erica's sentiment that they had tried to tell Sandy, but she would not listen. After this, Vukic goes to visit Erica. He recalled being... This is routinely brought up. I don't know why, but I'm going to bring it up because I think that it has an influence on how the detectives saw the case. Vukic recalls Erica being struck by how pretty yet vulnerable she was at 22 years old.
It sounds like the 1980s sheriff.
Yep. She claimed that her father had began abusing her around the age of 5 and stopped around the 4th grade. That's not dissimilar from what her sister had also claimed.
How old are you in 4th grade?
4th grade? 9. Yep.
Yeah.
9 or 10. The problem with Erica is she was 22 at the time, and it's well past the statute of limitations in Washington. Again, just like with Julie, he pressed for more recent events. Erica recalled that once she said, "I felt like I hurt all over when I woke up. The bed was wet and yucky, but could not remember when this had happened." Vukic pressed for more details. After she burst into tears and ran to her bathroom, and 10 minutes later she returned to say, "I caught a disease from my dad about a year ago. The doctor is in California, and there was also a doctor in Olympia who treated me." The detectives left about midnight when the testimony of both girls and the promise of medical evidence. They felt they had a strong case to give prosecutors. Erica would then contact Carla Franco the week of Thanksgiving and disclose to her that she had spoken to police. Carla asked Erica what she thought would happen to her father, to which she claimed she thought she would lose his job. Vukic then again interviewed Erica the week of Thanksgiving. Erica claimed that the most recent incident had actually occurred in September of 1988. She woke to find her father kneeling by her bed, touching her vagina. Vukic did not ask Erica why she had not told him of this incident at an earlier time. It is not unusual for victims to engage in what we call partial disclosure, but during the span of a week, the stories had gone from taking place over a decade before to now only a few months since Erica and Julie had left the house. Paul and Sandy continuously discussed the allegations, and Paul assured her that nothing had happened and perhaps the girls were trying to split the couple up, which, like, to me sounds like, I don't want to call it like gaslighting, but like straight up like, no, it's you and me against the world now, babe. Like, we're gonna fucking, they're just trying to tear us apart kind of shit, which is also totally ridiculous. They're all fucked up, dude. On November 28th, Sheriff Edwards and Detective Schoening informed Sandy of Paul's confessions that we discussed earlier. Sandy, having heard this, went into complete shock and nearly fainted. The officers were afraid to leave her alone as she seemed likely to harm herself. The officers called Pastor Ron Long, as well as the assistant pastor John Bratoom, who had been discussed earlier, and told to Sandy, it's probably true because children don't make these kinds of things up. We should note that this was the day before Sandy's 43rd birthday. Bummer. On November 29th, the front page of the Olympian read, County GOP leader faces sexual assault charge. While the article didn't mention any victims by name, Olympia was a smaller town and word spread incredibly fast. Everyone knew that the case involved Paul and his daughters. Edwards was aware at the time of seeming to protect a fellow officer. This is the head sheriff. He did not turn the matter over to another agency, but instead kept the whole investigation in-house. However, he invited detectives from other agencies to scrutinize his own detectives and those in the sheriff's department. Because of this, Edwards and his fellow officers made like a point to act like personally affected by the actions of Paul. They acted as victims, expressing surprise and embarrassment towards the matter and treating Paul as a pariah. Someone that is completely shunned. Yep. Soon after this, Paul meets with a psychiatrist out of Tacoma named Richard Peterson. In the morning after Paul's arrest, he was examined by Richard Peterson for mental fitness to stand trial for these crimes. During the interview, Paul expressed wonder at why he couldn't remember the crimes of which he was being accused of. Peterson explained that it is not uncommon for sexual offenders to bury the memories of their crimes because they were too horrible to consider. He believed that Ingram was likely abused as a child. This is the psychiatrist. Paul recalled, in response to that, he asked, were you ever used as a child? To which Paul responded that one time his mother had cautioned him to not scratch his crotch in public. That's it.
That's pretty big abuse.
Peterson again confirmed with what the detectives were telling him, that in confessing, the memories of the crime would come back to Paul. Ingram explained that he had already confessed and the memories still weren't there, to which Paul asked Peterson to be present in the afternoon session that he had scheduled with Vukic and Schoening. That same day, Vukic received 2 letters from Christy Weber, a teacher that Julie had written to 5 or 6 weeks before. Julie had gotten in some trouble for calling long distance with a friend of hers.
Yes.
Yeah, but like, this is how ridiculous it was. Is like, that was the trouble that she got in, and because she was such a straight student, they were like, hey, why did you do this? You need to write us a letter. To which Julie wrote, My feelings about this whole ordeal are totally weird. Sometimes I feel good and sometimes bad, and then there are days I feel totally confused and just wish I could move to a different state and start life all over with new friends, and no one would have to know about my past. And I have time mostly at night when I'm so scared. I don't sleep. I just wait in my room for my dad. I hate it. I never enjoy sex. It hurts so bad, and it makes me feel very dirty. Being a Christian, I'm supposed to forgive him for what he did and still does to me, but it's very hard. He also says things to me like, if you're a good girl, God will take care of you, and if you tell, you'll pay for it, I promise you. The significant part of this is that the abuse was ongoing at the time of the writing, something that Julie did not disclose to the police. There's also important things about being terrified and that your dad is definitely abusing you. But it just keeps getting moved more and more forward and more prescient when these abuses are taking place. Her letter also detailed that when she was 4 years old at a poker party in the Ingram house, a lot of men, quote, a lot of men would come over and play poker with my dad, and they would get all drunk, and one or two at a time would come into my room and have sex with me. They would be in and out all night, laughing and cursing. The weird thing was Erica and I shared a room, and they never touched her because she would say something. And also, at night, most of the time, she slept on the top bed. I think my dad and all his friends were afraid the bed might break. Vukic realizes that not only is Paul implicated by these matters, but so were many of the colleagues in the sheriff's department. Neil McClanahan and Vukic himself had even been to these poker nights. He recalled thinking of them as innocent, but the thought crept in that perhaps it was all a facade, covering up a conspiracy of sex criminals in the Thurston County Sheriff's Office. Julie's second letter detailed her wondering about her struggles and what will happen to her family as the case unfolds. Would people understand where Julie was coming from? Again, Paul is interrogated by Vukic and Peterson. Paul admits to remembering, at this time, Paul admits to remembering an uncle who abused him in Spokane when he was a child. He also admitted to getting intoxicated at poker nights. Paul named several men who attended the poker nights, most of whom were police. He claimed not to remember anyone ever going up to the girls' rooms. However, Schoening relayed to Paul that Julie had claimed that she was assaulted many times by multiple men at the poker nights. Asking Paul about the multiple men molesting Julie, Schoening said, she remembers being tied up, 2 people at least, taking turns with her while somebody else, probably you, watched. To this, Ingram replied, I don't see anything. Let me think about this for a minute. Let me see if I can get in there. Assuming it happened, she would have had a bedroom by herself, I would think. Ingram pauses would take up to 10 minutes again before describing something as a hypothetical scenario. The investigators would wait, making their weight and their impatience well known, including sighs and emphasizing, come on, Paul. Paul Ingram eventually implicated a fellow officer named Jim Raby. Raby had done the electric work in the Ingram house and was once a detective at the sex crime division of the sheriff's department, and was actually had the job now occupied by Vukic and Schoening. It was well known that Schoening and Raby did not get along. When Vukic, when asking if Jim was the person to whom Julie was referred, replied, just don't put words in my mouth. I'm trying to bring something up here. Jim is the only person who comes to mind. In the picture you've got, do you see ropes? Ingram replied, you put the ropes there and I'm trying to figure out what I've got. It kind of looks to me like she'd be lying down, kind of like she's hogtied. This goes on, but Paul again implicated Jim Raby. Paul, have you ever had sexual relations with Jim Raby? Asked Vukic. I don't think so, Paul replied. I just hate to think of myself as a homosexual. At this, the officers left the booth and were visibly upset by Paul's recollections. The men were said to have tears in their eyes and their faces were red. Peterson returned to Paul and asked if he was involved in black magic. Ingram replied that there was a time years ago when he would read his horoscope. Peterson then introduced the satanic cult idea to Paul. Peterson had now introduced the fire that would allow the case to burn out of control. Police would claim that on transcript, it is evident that the subject was initially broached, or police would claim that Ingram had brought up the subject, but it is evident from transcripts that it was initially broached by the psychologist Richard Peterson. Keep in mind that Paul waived all rights to counsel in good faith and in an effort to get to the bottom of this case. I think that's a good spot to end. All right, so far in this case, we're just getting to the point where there's rumblings about satanic rituals, black magic. But tune in next week as we devolve into some of the most graphic depictions of abuse, torture, and ritual, all done for the sake of Satan.
You're on side here. How's with the other ones? Thank you so much for listening to Drunk and Demonic. Tune in next week, you'll hear the rest. If Peter talks about Satan.
Yeah, do we want to talk about anything else? I have a couple notes for the end.
Need some notes?
Yeah, dude.
Let's start it up.
Well, what are we going to watch between now and then?
I don't think we're going to watch anything. I think we go straight into...
Fuck it, let's go.
I think we go straight into...
We're going to do another one within the next week, so we'll just roll with that.
Yeah, I don't think we need to watch anything. You're not going to watch it.
Yeah. Folks, we appreciate those of you who do watch.
Yeah.
We got to get going because I got a hockey game in straight up 10 minutes.
All right. We'll see ya.
Hail Satan.
Bye. I can't say Hail Satan. That's like my contract says.